State Representative Justin Holland of Heath. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
You bet.
So why should Republican voters reelect you and choose you over your opponent, Katrina Pearson?
Well, for one, I believe that I'm the best candidate for the job. This is something that I'm extremely passionate about. Having been to Austin for 4 regular sessions, 8 special sessions, I've got the experience that it takes. I've served underneath 3 different speakers. I've had leadership positions under 3 different speakers. I've got the seniority, the tenure. I'm a chairman of a major committee. I believe that I'm best suited to give the folks of Rockwall and Collin counties a seat at the table for the issues that most affect them. And I've built relationships with my colleagues in Austin, with my colleagues' staff members, with state agencies, and I believe that I have what it takes to continue producing the results that they've asked me to. And I also have a voting record to stand on. And so the big issues I've voted on, I believe, the way that my district wants me to. And they have somebody that with the experience to go down and do something about it.
You're in a runoff, as you know, and these runoffs really take a life of their own, right? It's a new election, and voter participation is usually lower than, the March 5th primary. So what are you doing to get out there and get your supporters and win? Sure.
This is a grassroots race, a true old school grassroots race. The March primaries have their, it's more like an air attack, and this is more like a sniper attack. We have to go and we're talking daily communication, person-to-person communication, talking to people that voted in the primary in March and people that maybe didn't get a chance to go out and vote. I'm targeting my voters. I'm calling anywhere in between 10 and 20 people a day that are undecided on what they're going to be doing. I've let everybody know that if you are unsure about what you want to do in the runoff, I will talk to you for as long as needed to get you there. I'll answer any question. I'll answer you truthfully. I'll give you my side of the story on all the things that you may be seeing that aren't quite true, or they may just be false lies. But we have a team of anywhere from 50 to 75 volunteers that have committed to help us get our people back out. And so it's kind of fun. It's like some of these local races. It's almost not like running for a state representative race. It's like running for a true local election because it's person-to-person communication every day.
So I want to ask you about, you're going up against an opponent who's been endorsed by some big, top Republicans. Governor Abbott, the Lieutenant Governor, the Attorney General, the Agriculture Commissioner. What do you say to that? What do you say to voters who may ask you about that?
Well, I get those questions a lot, and some people are even kind of mad when they ask the question because they followed the race. And I think people are starting to really understand what's at stake here and what's going on. But my direct answer to that question, quite frankly, and it's the way that I truly feel, is none of those statewide elected officials vote for me. The people in House District 33 vote for me, and as I talk to people, they think that I've done a good job. They say, Justin listens to what we want, and he goes to Austin and he votes that way. And so it is, yeah, a lot of people have come out against me, but none of them can walk into the Rockwall County Library or Heath City Hall and vote for me. Only the people that I'm talking to day to day can vote for me, and that's who I'm focused on right now.
So if you are reelected, what are your top priorities in the next session?
Sure. Well, as I talk to people right now, the biggest property tax cut in the history of the United States and Texas, for sure, we just did. We've got to do more. We have to continue giving property tax cuts the most we possibly can every single time that we can, where the money is available. And so I plan to prioritize property tax cuts. Border security, we've passed the strongest border security legislation in the history of Texas as well, including some that are still tied up in court proceedings. Border is the #1 issue that we hear, probably over property tax, but those two are the biggest ones. But I am a proponent of public education in the state of Texas, and there are very few people like me that are willing to stand up and fight for public education. And so between property taxes and the border, we need people in Austin that still will stand up for what's right and protect what's right for public education in Texas, prioritizing students, classrooms, and teachers, and making sure that they are adequately funded, which is our constitutional duty.
So let's talk about public education, because Governor Abbott obviously got into this race because you voted against the taxpayer-financed education savings accounts.
Correct.
And so I'm wondering, given all the fact that he's been out there campaigning for your opponent and against you, would your vote stay the same given
Yes.
all that's happened? Why?
Yes. Because my vote has always been that way. I've never seen an ESA plan that I liked or made good logistical sense. I don't believe that it's actually conservative to write a blank check for a couple of $1 billion for a political issue. Whenever we have things we can be doing to improve our public schools, improve failing schools that need it. I don't think that there aren't areas of Texas that may benefit from a program if we started small and did something for the areas that truly need it, the kids that truly needed it, a child that was trapped in a failing school, a parent that wanted to be empowered to take their child to another school. I represent some of the best schools and school districts in Texas. I don't vote for other areas of the state. I vote for House District 33. And so right now, until you show me a plan that makes sense, that's fiscally responsible, and that wouldn't ever take any money from our public schools, then I'm always open. I've never made up my mind that I'm just not always going to be for it. But
so you're still open to it?
I'm open to hearing of a plan that will actually help a child out, which is what it's about to me, is the kids. This has become a political issue. And so you're either for it or you're against it. You're a rhino if you're not. And if you're for it, then you get left alone in your campaigns. I'm not worried about my next campaign. I'm worried about the next generation of children in Texas public schools. And so I don't plan on voting for an ESA or a voucher next session. It certainly looks like they're making strides towards getting the votes that they need for that. That's just anybody that's following the races, you can see the numbers ticking up. A lot of my colleagues were taken out, and they're trying to take us out.
And what do you think about that?
It's horrible because we're losing democracy.
How so?
Because you can buy House seats.
Is that what you'd say is happening?
Well, I had $300,000 from a DC PAC spent against me just on the issue alone. And if you're telling me that we can have major big money PACs back candidates that will vote the way that we need them to next session, I think that's an attack on democracy. But for me, what I do is I do have a lot of people that support my campaign as well, but I go to Austin and vote the way that my district wants me to. I vote the way that I am, based off of principle and conscience and the way that you believe your district sent you to do that. I don't ever want to go to Austin to vote the way that I'm supposed to vote because I took somebody's campaign check or somebody voted or followed gave my opponent some advantage because they bought $800,000 worth of broadcast television against me 3 weeks before my election.
So are you saying that, have any of your constituents come and said, look, I really do support school choice, I wish you'd consider it?
Some have, and some still support me on that because they're not a one-issue voter. They also realize the importance of having somebody that's lived in the community for 40 years, somebody that owns a business and runs a business, that's part of a local church here, that has been involved in local politics prior to being in office in the legislature, somebody that has given back to the community, somebody that has been on boards and commissions and volunteered and actually sweat a couple of beads of sweat for our community. My opponent has just moved here 1.5 years ago and has never done anything, and she'll tell you that. And so, yeah, I've had constituents that come and say, I would like to talk to you about that issue, and I'm spending a lot of my time every day talking to constituents about the school issue. It's not black and white, it's not cut and dry. At this point, it's a theory, it's a concept, and when I tell them about the bill that we voted on in House Bill 1 back in the special session, they say, well, that's not what is being said. And so I think until you have a bill in front of you, you don't know how you would vote. I can tell you right now, we need increase to the basic allotment. We need teacher pay increases. We need bonuses for teachers based on student achievement. We need to not penalize teachers that are doing a good job and districts that are doing a good job. If a kid is trapped in a failing school, then we should fix that school. We don't need to come up with a new government entitlement program costing anywhere from $500 million to $2 billion that only 50,000 kids could take advantage of. Virtually nobody in my district would have been able to take advantage of it, even if I was for the plan. And so people don't understand what the bill was we voted on versus what's being said in the politics and what's being said on the commercials and what's being said in these mailers.
You brought up teacher raises. Should they be permanent? And should that be a clean, separate bill from education savings accounts?
Yes, teacher raises should be permanent. If we want to talk about bonuses, we could look at that, but teacher pay raises have not happened in a long time. We're in a high inflationary period of time in our economy. People are having to pay, they're getting paid the same money that they were 5 or 6 years ago or even before that with inflation at like it's been. Your next question was
clean bill.
Clean bill. Every policy should be voted on its own merit together. I'd be perfectly fine voting on teacher pay raises and increases to basic allotment in a separate bill than the ESAs, but we were told that the bill would be vetoed. We weren't offered a chance to vote on the bill on its separate merits.
The Senate did.
They sure did. They had their ESA bills, universal school choice, which would never fly or pass in the Texas House. They knew that. And then they had a one-time teacher pay raise. We want permanent teacher pay raises.
Let's talk about your vote to impeach Attorney General Ken Paxton. Obviously, he's campaigning against you and for your opponent, just as he has in other races. Seeing now that he was fully acquitted by the Senate, did that make you rethink your vote to impeach?
No, because I believe that over politics and over party affiliation, we need to do what's right. And the things that became apparent to me starting in February, whenever the Attorney General asked for $3.3 million to pay off his whistleblower lawsuit, whenever somebody asks for an appropriation request like that, the Appropriations Committee and all other members of the House have to justify that they're voting taxpayer dollars being spent on something. And so I didn't feel good about that. The General Investigating Committee, which I thought it did a tremendous job under Andy Murr's leadership, they came up with a lot of evidence that suggested that this thing should go to trial. I don't regret my vote. It has not made me very popular in some, sections of my party. But if I made a vote that I felt was the right thing to do, and I've been patted on the back quite a bit for it at home, I feel like that we need to stand up for what's right in Texas, and no matter what the consequences are.
You talked a little bit about whether taxpayers should be on the hook for that whistleblower lawsuit. You watched the trial, and the whistleblower's case was very much a part of that.
It was.
So given what the whistleblowers testified to, do you think that if they are to win that lawsuit, that taxpayers should be paying for that?
If the whistleblowers win the lawsuit,
lawsuit against the Attorney General's office, which it's against the office, not Ken Paxton,
sure,
the office, are taxpayers, should they be on the hook for that?
I think Ken Paxton's campaign should pay for it.
Even though it's not him, under the law, it's against the office. That's the state.
Well, he's the Attorney General. He gets all the credit for the lawsuits against the Biden administration. And so, I do believe that, and I've often admired a lot of the things that he's fought back on. I don't want people to think that I'm some Ken Paxton hater. I think that we stand up for what's right. We uncovered a lot of things that were wrong, and it justified a vote to go to trial. I don't believe that the state of Texas taxpayers should be on the hook for a whistleblower lawsuit with good conservative employees that were saying that they found something that was wrong. Is there an immunity for being the actual elected official versus the office being sued? I guess we'd have to look into that.
Another vote that you took may have raised some eyebrows, and that was just on House Bill 2744 to raise the age to 21 for anybody to buy a AR-style firearm. You were among those on the committee who voted for to pass it out of committee and let the full House. Why did you vote that way?
Well, it was a tough vote to take, but another one of these votes that I took several of. Maybe we could have spread those out a little bit, but you know, I felt it was the right thing to do. I'm a gun owner myself. I own many guns. I carry a gun. When you look at, you know, buying a pistol, you got to be 21 years old. Constitutional carry that every single Republican has campaigned on for the last 3 years, that where we made it to where you didn't have to have a license or permission from the government to carry your firearm. That's for 21-year-olds. You have to be 21 years old to drink. You have to be 21 years old to gamble. You have to be 21 years old to purchase a pistol. I felt like it is something that could have been. I was willing to be a part of the conversation, is what I'm saying.
You wanted to see a debate on the House floor.
Well, I knew that was not going to happen. It was too late in the session, and we took the vote, and I chose to not take the politically expedient route.
Regarding border security, if SB 4 is ultimately ruled unconstitutional in the federal courts, what next for Texas?
Well, Texas, we have the right to defend ourselves against this, and this is where I'm, we should have zero tolerance on this. And say what you say about Donald Trump, but he needs to be reelected. We've got to get a partner in the White House that will cooperate with Texas. I think that's our major hangup. The Joe Biden administration has been disastrous. And the way that this goes is whenever Joe Biden's in office and you have an issue like this that's so polarizing, Texans have made it clear. They want the borders to be secure. They want us to build walls. They want us to have boots on the ground. They want us to use all means necessary to keep people who aren't supposed to be in Texas out and to keep the drugs off the street. And that's a mandate from our voters. And so we've got to do that. So whatever we can do to continue making sure that we have the resources for our state troopers, the resources for our Texas military, we have other states that are helping us. The Border Patrol. I've been to the border several times. I sit on the border, the Homeland Security and Public Safety Committee. I've been a part of this discussion not only from a committee standpoint, but from an appropriation standpoint. We've appropriated $10 billion over the last 4 sessions and 8 special sessions. We should be able to do something about it. And without the federal government helping you with that, I have asked the border security, I've asked Texas state troopers at the border, was it easier when Donald Trump was the president than it is right now? And the answer is unequivocally yes.
And I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned property tax relief.
Mm-hmm.
There was some discussion last session as well about eliminating property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that? And if so, how soon? And if so, how do you make up the money so that the state still can operate, and schools as well?
Well, you can't eliminate property taxes. We have to get that off the table. There's a lot of people that like to say they want to get rid of property taxes. That would be great, but you can't pay for that. You can get rid of the school maintenance and operations tax.
Right. And that's really when people talk about that, you're right.
Yeah, we have to specify what we're talking about, because that's another thing that leads to some of the misleading things we see in the news. Is people love that. Yeah, I'd love to pay no property taxes, but you have to have roads, you have to have water, you have to have police and fire and ambulance, and all of the things that teachers. You have to have these things. We can get rid of M&O. It would take about, in my opinion, 10 years, an aggressive approach to 10 years. We might need to put some mechanisms in place in a constitutional amendment. That's probably the way that it would go, to make sure that future legislatures and future budgets were required to dump money into an M&O elimination pot, much like we've done for increasing transportation funding and water funding and infrastructure funding. One thing that I've learned in 8 years is if Texas wants to do something, we find the money for it. And I think you can. And I would be supportive of eliminating the M&O tax in 10 years.
Several other questions, and I appreciate your time. What was your response to the UT protests last week and yesterday? And did UT do the right thing in calling in police officers?
Yes, I support President Hartzell. President Hartzell, I think that's right. In his efforts there. For one, my response was, it's abhorrent. I think that they should all be arrested. They should all, that should not be going on our college campuses. This is what gives some of our higher education in Texas and some of the, we have great public schools in Texas as it relates to colleges, but this is what makes that look bad. I support what Hartzell did. I support them being arrested. I support them being kicked out of the encampments. No terroristic activity or support of terroristic activity should be tolerated. And I signed the letter that Carl Tepper put out today, making that clear.
Some critics say, Governor Abbott and Republicans approved SB 18 back in the 2019 session, which was setting new requirements to allow for free speech, not just by students, but also by members of the public on college campuses, the public universities. And so I'm wondering, shouldn't there be room? Isn't this part of free speech, or is this being disruptive?
Free speech should absolutely be protected, but there becomes a moment whenever disruption and violence should not be tolerated. And I saw, in just what I saw in this case, and I do support the university's choice to bring in law enforcement and thank them for their bravery too. Those people go put those vests on every day and they don't know what they're going to have to walk into, and they probably didn't think that day. But being disruptive and violent shouldn't be tolerated, and I support any and all means necessary to bring back the peace to where the free speech that is intended, I believe in our Constitution, to be upheld. But you don't get to play both sides and be disruptive, violent, and have your free speech. You have free speech, and we should all respect and trust that you're respecting your neighbor and your right to that free speech without interfering in their public safety.
As you know, there are a number of Republican House runoffs, and one of them is Speaker Dave Phelan. Do you support Dave Phelan now in his race, and would you support him if he makes it through the runoff? And the election, would you support him being Speaker again?
That's two questions. One is, do I support Dave Phelan? And absolutely yes. Dave and I have been friends, and we've been colleagues for 4 sessions. We are all in our own runoffs, and the way that the Texas House Republican Caucus works is that we're required in bylaws to support the candidate that the caucus puts forth. And so I think you're going to see that process play out. Speaker Phelan may not run for Speaker again. If Speaker Phelan is not reelected, then we'll have to go through a 4th Speaker race in my time in the legislature. So my thought to that is, I support and have supported Speaker Phelan. He and I have been, he was the chairman of State Affairs whenever I was on State Affairs. He's appointed me to be the chairman of the Texas Sunset Advisory Commission. We've worked very well together. He's a smart member, and he cares about Texas, and he cares about his district. He's fighting for a seat in his district right now, just like I am. And when these races are over, the caucus will get together like we do every session and support a Speaker candidate. That's not a standing invitation to be Speaker. So I think that we need to see how the caucus responds to this. The caucus will look very differently than it did last session. We've got a number of new members and possibly some new members to come in after these elections. And so I'll continue to follow the Texas House GOP caucus protocol.
And my last question is Democratic committee chairs. There's a very vocal group, seemingly growing group of Republicans in the House who want to eliminate Democratic committee chairs.
Sure.
Where are you on that?
Well, the Texas House has had a long tradition of making sure that the right people are in the right positions. I would argue that not every Democrat in the Texas House is like the Democrats that we talk about in Washington, D.C. We have a number of issues that people are experts on in the Texas House, and I'll look back at members like Terry Canales, who's an extremely conservative Democrat from Edinburgh. and also an expert on transportation. And he's the chairman of the Transportation Committee. I respect that that his tenure and his experience and his ability to lead in a policy area was seen over the letter behind his name. Tracy King, when we had the Water Committee, the Natural Resources Committee, Tracy King, who's not coming back, has been in the House for years and years and years, and after Lyle Larson left, I would say that he's the next best person to be over the natural resources issues, regardless of whether there's a D behind his name. I don't believe that Democrats should be appointed to committee chairs that are going to obstruct conservative legislation going through the process, and I don't believe that that's happened. I do believe that we should look at the person based on their merit, their experience, the things that the policy areas they know, because the people of Texas are best served whenever we can work together as a Texas House, a deliberative body, which is one of the greatest in the country, if not the world. I believe that if you just say that a certain party is not allowed to have a committee chairmanship, you're thwarting the people that sent them there as well. So I'm a hard no on just saying no because of who you are, because I think that hurts Texas. If you don't have the right people in the right seats, and let me say this, there are people that would run as Republicans if they could get elected where they live.
State Representative Justin Holland, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jack. Appreciate you.